new plants in Germany and Austin, further reducing costs. Tesla's sitting in the catbird seat. We'll see how long they can stay on top.
Well, that is, of course, the key question. I mean, everything you mentioned, many might say, has already been accounted for in that $1.2 trillion market value. What about when more competition starts to hit the market? We hear about new entrants all the time. Rivian's going to be coming public. Lucid's out there now delivering. And others, of course, with the names Ford and GM and on. Is it going to create more competition that could potentially hurt this company?
Well, I think it is going to create competition for Tesla. I think for the next 6 months, Tesla's going to do well. The others, just simply put, got started too late. But here are the things to remember. Tesla has real advantages in 3 areas that people often don't talk about. First, they're the first ones to bring battery production in-house. That lowers costs. They are the leader in what's called the new 4680 form factor. They will continue to have a lead in lower cost batteries. Second, they are the leader in building connected cars. For some reason, it took 8 years before the other automakers began to make all of their cars connected. Tesla's a leader in what's called selling OTA, over-the-air software features. This is why Tesla's average gross margin is in the mid-20s, while most other auto companies are in the high teens. But as you step back a bit, here's what I think is going to happen. A lot of automakers may have started too late. I think Ford's going to have difficulties. I think GM started too late. Toyota, the world's largest auto company, was in denial about electric vehicles, and they waited way too long. The ones that I think are interesting are Volkswagen. Herbert Diess moved very quickly. He is getting near cost parity in batteries with Tesla, and the Chinese. People forget China is the biggest auto market in the world. For the first time, you're going to see Chinese auto brands on the streets in America. This battle's going to get interesting quick, and then everybody's waiting for the big smackdown in trucks. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly getting interesting quick, Steve. It's Morgan. It seems to me that part of the reason we saw such an incredible move on the Hertz news with Tesla is because, to your point, the connectivity, the data, the technology that's involved in this, the fact that it was also a deal that was struck with Uber as well, it speaks to kind of the future of mobility and this idea of robo-taxis and everything else that all of this technology built by companies like Tesla is going to enable. So we're going to see more of these types of partnerships and deals. And if so, how far away or maybe how close is the reality of those types of fleets?
Well, look, here's the big picture. The whole world is finally realizing the auto industry is going all electric. Europeans, already 15% of total car sales in Europe are electric. US still in the high single digits, but we will be catching up. Americans are waking up. And Tesla's the brand people want. Now, the rest of the world will make better cars. They will eventually provide the connectivity and the over-the-air services that Tesla is, but they're going to have to catch up on battery technology. And then there's also the issue of who gets to autonomous functionality first. And there, too, Tesla appears to have the lead. But we're going to have to see how long they can hold it. Expect a lot of pressure as everybody comes into the market. The other thing people should be looking at, I expect there's going to be what I call the great shakeout in the auto industry, because precisely when all these new brands are coming into the market, like Lucid, as you mentioned, and even Apple in the near future, the next generation appears to be increasingly happy with ride-hailing. And as that ride-hailing becomes autonomous and less expensive, you may see too many car companies on the market precisely when there's a pullback on sales. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the other piece of the puzzle, you just mentioned it, is China. And obviously the EV capabilities are what's really in focus with some of those startups right now. But as we do increasingly talk more about autonomous, does that actually become, especially when you're talking about the dynamics between the US and China, a national security issue given all of the data and security elements that are going to be attached with that technology?
Well, without a doubt, there's 3 points here. First, Americans tend to forget that China, not the US, is the largest auto market in the world today. China obviously is going to have a cost advantage producing vehicles in their own country, and the government will unlikely put the finger on the scales to help the domestic makers. But Tesla's done well producing vehicles to date. We'll see if the Chinese government allows that to continue. Second, you've got to be worried about the Taiwan situation. 60% of the world's semiconductors come from Taiwan. We're already seeing global supply chain shortages, so Americans need to be worried about that. Second, it's just hard traditionally for Americans to compete in China, and now the Chinese are coming to compete in Europe and the US. So things are going to get interesting quickly, and as well as China has done, and I've been their biggest champion, you have to acknowledge there are some people like Volkswagen that started moving to EVs quickly years ago. Chinese already there with the lowest cost battery production from CATL and BYD. So this is going to get tough for Tesla. They're going to have to be on their best game. The good news is Elon was smart. When their stock is nosebleedy high, they raised a lot of money, deep balance sheets. They truly are one of the biggest companies in the world. This is going to be a fascinating battle.
Yeah, it will be. They do, as you pointed out, have seemingly limitless access to capital right now. That can change. Finally, you did mention Apple. You see them as a real potential entrant into this market. I mean, what are your expectations for an Apple car, Steve?
Here's what investors should remember. For the last 100 years, cars are about internal combustion engines and brakes and tires and all that good stuff we love. Going forward, cars will be computers on wheels. By the way, as you mentioned earlier, they'll increasingly be sold in fleets, not so much individuals. So Apple is a natural. They understand beautiful products and the seamless integration with phones and the other parts of your life. So Apple has been in production work for close to a decade. I believe within 2 to 3 years, they will put a car on the market. But it just goes to show a lot of new entrants. The old brands are really going to have to up their game to compete with the likes of Tesla and Apple. And don't forget, these are two now of the world's 6 largest companies, huge balance sheets, the ability to invest in R&D, the ability to win the race to autonomous. I'm really glad. I'm hoping for American to come out on top, whether it's Tesla or Apple. I think we're going to have some pretty strong entrants.
All right, Steve, always appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Turning back to Pfizer, getting a boost after beating on earnings. Separately, the CDC also meeting today to discuss the company's COVID vaccine for children. Meg Terrell has more on both of those. Meg.
Hey, Morgan. Well, the stock up really on a huge beat from the COVID vaccine in the quarter, coming in at $13 billion in revenue, more than $1 billion ahead of what analysts were looking for. The company also raising its forecast for the full year for the vaccine, now predicting $36 billion in sales from 2.3 billion doses for which they've signed contracts to deliver this year. Next year, they are projecting that they can make 4 billion doses. They've already signed contracts to deliver 1.7 billion of those. They say they're in discussions for more. That amounts to $29 billion in current expected revenue from the vaccine next year. Analysts were looking for $22 billion, so this really exceeding those estimates. Now, the call is going on now. Pfizer giving some updates on multiple programs, including when it expects results for younger children for its COVID-19 vaccine under the age of 5. Now they say they're looking at by year end for kids ages 2 to less than 5. And in the first quarter for babies ages 6 months up to toddlers less than age 2. So parents of younger children, this is the latest update for that. Now, parents of kids ages 5 to 11 have a big day today while the CDC's outside advisors meet to discuss Pfizer's vaccine for that age group. We're expecting a vote around 4:15. If that is a positive vote, the CDC director then would have to sign off. That's the last step before kids could potentially be getting these vaccines as soon as tomorrow morning, guys. Back over to you.
Wow, a lot to watch. And I have to say, Meg, good to be a government contractor, at least where healthcare is concerned right now, whether it is Pfizer, you talked about those gangbusters COVID vaccine numbers, or McKesson, which is at a new high today, up 4.5%, as it has helped distribute these vaccines over the past almost year now. So you touched on it, but just in terms of these deals with the government here in the U.S., as more people get shots, as more people get boosters, just how much would we expect that type of tailwind to continue into 2022 and beyond?
That is the key question for all of these COVID vaccine stocks right now. What is the booster market going to look like in the United States? Does this turn into a flu shot type of market where we have to update the vaccine annually or something like that? It's just really not clear right now. But throughout at least 2022, getting this visibility from Pfizer, seeing that there are still a lot more folks across the world who need their first doses, there's still a lot more people who need the vaccine. But beyond that, we'll have to see how it goes.
A lot of moving pieces, Meg. Thank you, Meg Terrell. As we go to break, watch Under Armour shares surging this morning, one of the best performers on the S&P, more than doubling earnings estimates for the quarter. And don't miss an exclusive with CEO Patrick Frisk later today on the closing bell. That's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Got the transports new high, first time since May, and the Russell as well, thanks in part to Avis Budget. We're back in a moment.